Good morning. Welcome to part 22 of my Round the Kent Coast Cycling Challenge. It's great to have you back. We're on a beach now past Whitstable. I hope you like the opening shot there where you can hear the sea lapping against the shore. Today we're heading on towards Herne Bay and Reculver, so it's going to be a great episode. Hopefully you'll join me for the entire route. Let's get going. So one of the focal towns today was Herne Bay, which is quite interesting. It's one of the main towns on today's journey, which we're going to look at. Now this was originally formed as part of a kind of dock for goods going to Canterbury, a bit like Whitstable was. But in the Victorian era it really took off as a kind of tourist hub. Now in more recent decades this has kind of waned off on the tourist side because of mainly because of the onset of cheap package holidays abroad around Europe, where the climate is more guaranteed, and it's also been which has limited the growth of Herne Bay, problems with flooding over the past few decades due to the tides coming in and no real protection. In recent years a better line of sea defence has been built called Neptune's Arm, which is kind of a long jetty going out in the main town, which we may cycle along. It'll be very interesting. Anyway, let's go and head in Herne Bay now. So here we are at the end of Neptune's Arm in Herne Bay. As you can see behind me, it does create a little harbour, and you can see the town, and as we pan round you'll see the pier. Right, let's have a proper look round the top of this monument. So as we're standing on Neptune's Arm, we're looking onto Herne Bay Pier here. It's actually very interesting, the history of the piers in Herne Bay. This is actually the fourth pier that was built, and it was only been opened very recently. It's quite nice, as you can see here. It's got a kind of fun fair on and a few stalls and shops. Well worth a nice walk along on a sunny day. So the first pier was actually built in 1832. It didn't last long. And the two preceding piers actually had a lot of problems as well. The third pier, you can actually still see the remnants out to sea, as you can see right in the distance here. Now over time they were hit by kind of storm damage. There was a year when the sea actually froze, and that caused a lot of damage to the pier structure, and storms and fire damage. There's a whole history, if you want to look it up online, on the things that seem to go wrong with the piers. So that's my top tip. If you're thinking of building a structure in Herne Bay, just stay well away from building piers. Right, let's head on through Herne Bay. Now in Herne Bay there's actually a few statues and monuments to Amy Johson. Now Amy Johson was the first female pilot to fly single-handedly to Australia from the UK, which is quite an impressive achievement. They actually filmed the ending of her flight to Australia and a very dangerous landing, so here's the clip of it now. Now the reason they actually, there are monuments in Herne Bay to her, she actually died out to sea, just out here somewhere, where a plane actually went off course and she ran out of fuel, which caused her to kind of bail out of the plane and parachute into the water. Now the circumstances about her rescue were quite controversial. There was a naval ship that went out to her rescue to try and rescue her. Not only she died, but the person actually who went out and swam to try and get her also died of exposure a few days later. Now there's several stories surrounding her death. One is that actually she was hit also by the rescue boat, by the propellers, and was chopped up, and because her body was never found. Now that's quite a gruesome fact, but something I read on Google, so I'm not actually sure it's true. But that's an interesting fact about Amy Johson and her connection with Herne Bay. Right, let's carry on through this town. So we found quite a nice spot here. I just wanted to show you. We're on top of some mud banks between Herne Bay and Reculver. It's actually quite nice. It's almost cliff-like. As I pan around, you'll see you can see kind of down the bottom of the cliffs to the shore. I just want to pan around here because something I do want to talk about at some point is the sea forts out to sea. You've got the Red Sands sea fort, which is way off in distance. You may not see this because it's a long way off. And the wind farms. Now I do want to talk about this in quite detail at some point on this journey. It may not be this week, but perhaps next week. But as I pan round, you'll actually see the journey ahead. I'm going to have to take a slight detour here because the cliff kind of does end and go down. But as we go around the detour, we'll be heading on to Reculver Fort, which is just over the brow of that hill. It's quite exciting. Let's head there now. So we're a bit further along the coast now. We're still on top of the kind of muddy cliff, just coming up to Reculver. As I pan around, you will see the kind of beach below. You can walk along there. It seems like a quite nice walk. Apparently this is quite a well-known beach for finding fossils and shark teeth, so well worth a look. And as we are going on, we're heading towards Reculver Church in the distance. The imposing twin towers of the medieval church at Reculver dominate the skyline of Herne Bay. These act as navigational markers for ships at sea. This was the site of one of the earliest Roman forts built against the Saxon raids on the Saxon shore. It later became the site of an Anglo-Saxon monastery before becoming the parish church of Reculver. The tall towers were built in a remodelling of the church in the 12th century, and a lot of it still stands today. If you want to find out a bit more history, there is lots to find out on the English Heritage website, so please have a look. Right, let's carry on around the coast. So thanks for joining me in part 22 of my Around the Kent Coast Cycling Challenge. We're now leaving Reculver, and next week we'll be heading towards Margate, which is in that direction. So join me in part 23. See you next week.